Okay, Cantor Aronoff. Shabbat Shalom. This streaming is currently offline at Adat Ari, but I'm hoping we are on Facebook.
Well, mine says live on custom live streaming service.
So does mine. Yep, I believe we're going.
Is that true?
There we are.
Boy, it's interesting because let's see what this says. Oh. Well, somehow or other, as long as you see it, that's what counts.
Well, I don't see us on Adat Ariel yet, so I'm just, there we go. Oh, we're on Adat Ariel.
Okay.
Just took a little while there for all things to kind of connect, all things wild and wonderful in internet land. So we're now here. So Cantor Aronoff, let us begin again. Shabbat Shalom, Cantor Aronoff.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi Bernhard. And I don't know, I often will look at the Facebook as well to see comments. It's a way of connecting. I don't see it now, but I'll be patient. I'll wait. I mean, I won't wait to start. I'll wait to look.
It is there. So Shabbat Shalom, Cantor Aronoff. Shabbat Shalom, everyone out in Facebook land and wherever else this happens to be streaming or beaming to. I want to welcome everyone to our Kabbalat Shabbat service. And I think that's enough talking from me. Cantor Aronoff, take it away.
Sure. We're going to start on page 10 with Yedid Nefesh. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, a wonderful way to bring in Shabbat. And now we are going to turn to the very next page, page 11, for Lechu Niranena. Lechu Niranena Ladonai, Nari Aletzor Yishenu, Nekadma Fana Bitoda, Bizmiro Nari Alo, Nekadma Fana Bitoda, Bizmiro Nari Alo, Kiel Gadol Adonai, Umelech Gadol Al Kol Elohim, Asher Biyado Mechkerei Aretz, V'Toavot Harim Lo, Asher Biyado Mechkerei Aretz, V'Toavot Harim Lo, Asher Lo Yam Yuasahu, V'Yeveshet Yadav Yatzaru, V'Nishtach Habev Nichra. Arba'im shana akut bidor, va'omaram toei levavim, v'im lo yadu derachai, asher nishbati beyapi, yim yevo'un el menuchati. We turn to the very next page, page 13, for Psalm 96. Shir l'Adonai shir chadash, shir l'Adonai kol haaretz, shir l'Adonai baruch hu shemo b'asher miyamim. Page 14 at the arrow, Yismechu Hashamayim. Yala lai lai yanai, yana nai nai nai, yala lai lai la lai lai la lai lai la lai, yala lai lai la lai, yala lai lai la lai, yana nai 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 nai, yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz, yiram. Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz, yiram hayam, u'melo'o. Yana nai nai nai, yana nai nai nai, yana nai 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 nai, yana nai nai nai. V'tagel haaretz, yiram hayam, u'melo'o. Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz, yiram hayam, u'melo'o. Yala lai lai la lai, yala lai lai la lai, yala lai lai la lai lai la lai lai la lai, yala lai lai la lai, yala lai lai la lai, yala lai lai la lai lai la lai lai lai. Ya'alo sadai v'chol asher bo, az yiranenu kol atzei ya'ar. Lifnei Adonai kiva, kiva lishpot haaretz, yishpot tevel betzedek, ve'amim be'emunato. Turn out to pages 17 and 18 for Psalm 98. מזמור שיר לאדוני שיר חדש, כי נפלאות עשה, הושיע לו ימינו זרוע קודשו. On page 18, 3 lines from the top. Zameru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor v'kol zimra, b'chatzotrot v'kol shofar, hariu lifnei hamelech Adonai. Zameru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor v'kol zimra, b'chatzotrot v'kol shofar, hariu lifnei hamelech Adonai. Yiram hayam uglo'o, tevel ve'yoshveva, neharot imcha uchav, yachad arim yeraneinu, lifnei Adonai kiva, kiva lishpot haaretz, yishpot tevel betzedek, ve'amim b'meisharim. Yiram hayam uglo'o, tevel ve'yoshveva, ne'arot imcha uchav, yachad harim yeraneinu.
And we turn now to page 23 for Hune Rananam.
How about L'chadodi?
L'chadodi, that's what I meant. I'm delighted with Hune Rananam. I've been singing it the whole time.
Yeah.
If I'm to be quite honest.
L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'tiborech marish miyanu, ela meyuchad Adonai echad, u'shemo echad l'shem ultiferet ve'litila. L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nechaki mekor haberacha mirosh mikedem, ve'sucha sof ma'aseh b'machshavat techila. L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Mikdash melech ir melucha kumitzei, mitoch ha'pecha rav lachshevet, v'yemek habacha ve'hu yachamol alayich chemla. L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Adat Ari me'afar kumili shibigde, tifatecha mi'al yad ben Yishai, beit alach mikareva el nafshi, nafshi ge'ala. L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Itoreri, itoreri, ki ba'orech, umi ori, uri, uri, shir daberi, kevod לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה והיו למשיסה שוסייך ורחקו כל בבלייך יסיס עלייך אלוהייך כמסוס חתן חתן או כלה לחדודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה ימין ושמאל תפרוצי בי את אדוני תעריצי על יד איש פן פרצי פן ישמחה לנגילה לחדוני לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה בואי בשלום עטרת מעלה גם בשמחה ובצולתוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לחדודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה לחדודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה. Good Shabbos. So, if you spoke, Rabbi Bernhard, we didn't hear you because you were muted.
That was the most profound words I've ever shared. I'm so disappointed.
Oh, well.
It might have been, though, that I also said, we now turn to page 27. You may be seated.
In some ways, I'm sure that can be very profound. Mizmor shir liyom HaShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות. עלי עשור אבילינה ולעלי צדיק התמר יפרח, כרס בלבנון יזכה, שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו. עוד ירבון בשיבה, דשני ורעננים יהיו, להגיד כי ישר אדוני, צורי ולא עוולה תבוא.
We now all stand for the blessing over the Shabbat candles.
All right, I am going to turn this way. Mel, if you move out of the way, maybe you can see my candles on my dining room table over there. That's where I lit tonight. Can you see?
Kind of looking.
And we could go over there.
No, it's okay.
Okay, you see them? Yeah, okay.
Kinda, yeah.
So where next time maybe I'll walk over there. But okay, so let's sing together. We got this. La 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya na na na. Ya na na. Shabbat Shalom. We still don't hear you, Rabbi B.
You turn to the person next to you or across the screen and just give them a smooch. There you go. Shabbat Shalom. All right, you may be seated. In a moment, we're going to be turning to page 39a for the call to worship the Baruch Hu. But first,
a little Torah.
A little Torah. Thank you. Okay, so for our Torah for today, Cantor Aronoff, for some reason, the screen is not switching off of you, even though I'm in speaker view. So maybe just kill your camera for a sec.
Sure.
Okay, so hopefully people are not seeing just that. All righty, so this week's Torah portion, Parshat Vayetze, a tremendous Torah portion. This is where we read about Jacob fleeing from his brother who desires to murder him, since Jacob stole the blessing for the firstborn. We read about his meeting with Rachel at the well. We read about his meeting with his uncle Lavan, how Lavan cheats him out of marrying Rachel. He ends up marrying Leah, Rachel's older, less something sister. Not exactly clear what less there is there, but that Jacob loves her less and loves Rachel more, that's clear. Works for 7 years, then also will then work another 7 years for Rachel as well, working a total eventually of 20 years for Lavan as he accumulates this great wealth and also a ton of children. Leah is going to have 6 boys and 1 girl, Dinah, and all the other women and wives of Jacob, Rachel and then the 2 handmaids, Zilpah and Bilhah, will also have 2, all between all 3 of them, making the 12 tribes. So that's this week's Torah portion. As I said, really very fascinating. And what I want to focus on today is these 2 midrashim. There are these 2 midrashim that talk about Leah and how God showed compassion to Leah, divine mercy, rachmanas, for Leah. And what were the 2 instances? So in the beginning of the Torah portion, we read that Rachel was beautiful, but Leah had weak eyes. And no one knows exactly what that's meant to be. Maybe that's just a way of saying she was less attractive than Rachel. Maybe it's just a way of saying she actually had something wrong with her eyes. Don't really know, but there's this rabbinic midrash that says that Leah was a good person, that she was in fact really a very beautiful person, as beautiful as Rachel, if not more beautiful. But when Rachel ended up marrying Jacob, that meant that Leah would end up marrying the older brother Esau. And Leah, being a good and righteous woman, cried and cried and cried. She cried her eyes out, so to speak, pleading with God that she should not marry Esau. And God offers up God's compassion, God's divine mercy, and makes it so that Leah does not have to marry Esau. Of course, marrying the same husband as your sister is a little bit off too, but it seems like biblically we can handle that. However, this is from the point of view of rabbinic tradition, an example of God's kindness. But there's another time when God shows kindness in response to Leah, and that is when Leah has her first 6 children. They're all boys, right? And she sees that Rachel is struggling to give birth, right? And she's pregnant again, and she does not want to have another boy as a way of kind of rubbing it into Rachel's face that here she is providing Jacob with all these boys. So she prays, and God changes the sex of the child in the womb from a boy to a girl, and Dinah is born. And that's why Leah has 6 male children and one female, 1 daughter. And this, the rabbis say, was done out of Leah's praying on behalf of Rachel to show some compassion, and God grants that for Leah. So here's the question that came up, though, which is, why is it that the first time Leah had to cry her eyes out, so to speak, before God responded, where this time God responded just to, according to the rabbinic midrash, Leah's request? Why didn't she have to, in a sense, cry her eyes out in some way, shape, or form? And the answer that I would like to suggest is the following. In the first instance, Leah is asking for divine compassion, divine mercy for herself. But in the second, she's asking it for someone else. In fact, she's asking it for someone with whom she has a rather troubled relationship. So the fact that she's willing to ask to be able to see through the jealousy and the envy and the trouble that she and her sister have, to see through those emotions and see that her sister is suffering, and offer up a prayer to God that God should show her sister this kind of compassion, such that Leah should have a girl instead of a boy. That concern for someone else is such that she does not need to cry her eyes out. She does not have to offer up anything of herself. The offering for the other person, the concern for the other person, is enough in and of itself. So 2 instances of Leah asking for divine mercy, for Rahmanis, 2 instances of it being granted. But note the power of offering it up and asking for compassion for someone else. And so as part of our services today, as we get to the Amidah, or at any point in time in the service where you should feel so moved, I invite you to practice this. I invite you to offer up a prayer of compassion, not for someone that you like, not someone that you care about, but for someone who you might actually have a more difficult relationship with, but you know who is struggling. Offer up that kind of prayer. And in that sense, be just like Leah, one of our great ancestors. All righty, my friends, Shabbat Shalom. We now turn to page 39a for the call to worship the Baruch Hu. I invite everyone to please rise as we face east for this call to worship.
Lai, 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 la, lai, 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 la, lai, 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 lai.
May be seated as we continue on page 39a. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
El Chai v'Kayam, Tamidim Ochaleinu Leolam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai,
Baruch Shmo.
Ari Varavi.
Amen.
Ahavat Olam.
Page 40, Adat Ari.
V'avatcha tasir mimenu li'olamim, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha ve'shinantam levanecha ve'dibarta bam Beshivtecha beveitecha ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, והיה אם שמוע תשמעו.
Continue with the second and third paragraphs of the Shema, page 42.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. Top of 43a. Emet v'yemunah, Emet v'yemunah, Emet v'yemunah kosod, v'kayam aleinu, Emet v'yemunah kosod. Ki hu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ein zulato, v'anachnu Yisrael, Yisrael Amo. Emet v'yemunah, Emet v'yemunah, Emet v'yemunah kosod, v'kayam aleinu, Emet v'yemunah kosod. On the top of page 44. Umalchuto b'ratzon kiblu aleihem Moshe u'Miriam u'bnei Yisrael lechanu shira v'simcha rabba v'yamru chulam lai 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 ay nai nai ay nai 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 ay nai nai ay nai 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 lai 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 ay lai 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 ay lai 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 mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh noratehi lo tosefele osefele malechutecha ra'u v'necha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe ze elianu b'yamru Adonai yimloch li'olam va'ed lai 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 ay lai lai ay nai 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 ay nai nai ay lai 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 ay nai 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 v'ne'emar ki fadaran et Yaakov u'ki'alo mi'ad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael.
Amen.
Ashkiveinu.
Continue on page 45 with Hashkiveinu.
Ushmor tzeiteinu uvoenu l'chaim l'shalom me'ata v'ad olam ufros aleinu sukat shalomecha baruch ata Adonai hapore sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim ve'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת שבס לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובני ישראל אותי לעולם אותי לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת שבס לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש שבת וינפש ביום השביעי ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה וילמד יברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי תכו בית ישראל בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם וליומי עולמיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמה ויאמרו amen.
We now rise as we now turn to page 47 in our Sidurim, in our prayer books for the opening blessings of the Amidah. The Amidah goes from page 47 to page 52, a time for you to use the Hebrew, the English, or whatever works for you. And I also want to just throw out there, maybe this is a time, if the traditional Hebrew prayers don't work for you, maybe it's a time when you can really focus on and think about that prayer of compassion that you want to offer up for that other person. Begins however you want to begin it though, in terms of our Siddur, page 47, and this is one where we face these.
Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, Amen. Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, So I thought tonight we would do page 53, Vayachulu. And I hope that's good with you because I can't hear you because you're still muted.
That's fine.
Lie and lie and lie, Rabba, Be'alma divra chirutev yamlich machute b'chayet chono v'mechonu v'chay l'chol beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kariv yimeru. Amen. Yeshmei Rabba mevorach le'olam u'le'ol me'omaya yitbarach. Yitbarach v'ishtabach v'yitpor v'yitrum amina sev v'tadar v'talev v'talel shmei d'kudesha brichu le'ela mikol brachata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran v'yama v'yimeru. Amen. Titkabel floton uvaton d'chol Yisrael kodam avuhodi v'shmaya v'yimeru. Amen. Yesh lama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'kol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen. Ose shalom b'mromav u'yaseh shalom aleinu v'kol Yisrael v'kol yoshvei tevel v'yimeru. Amen.
now turn to page 55 and ask everyone to please rise for the Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'yava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים, כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
So what you drinking tonight, Cantor enough?
It's a cab sav.
Cab Sav. Very nice. I like how fluent you are with that fancy terminology.
Yeah, you know, the wine connoisseur that I am.
All right, we rise page 56. Eleni, once again, we face east.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כנשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל עמונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויסד הארץ, ומשב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום והשבותה אל לבבך, כי אדוני אלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. אוקיי, נקרא לך אדוני אלוהים. כי המלכות שלך היא ולעולם תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו echad.
As we turn now to page 58 for the Mourner's Kaddish, we do want to take a moment and just acknowledge the passing of Belge and Asov, Cindy Ulch's mom. To Cindy, to her whole family, who I believe they've just come to the end of Shiva. They've been observing up in Canada. Really hope that the time of Shiva was a time to be able to gather and reflect upon your mother, the way she touched your life, and that the days and weeks ahead, you'll be able to continue sharing those memories and come to a place of comfort and peace. And we all say, Amen. Also, in the following week, members of our congregation will be observing the following yard sites. Those of Donald Kravitz, Alice Iries, Carol Kapler, Alan Kay, Robert Neiman, Jacob Joel Popowitz, Edward Roseman, George Schneiderman, Harry Silver, Beatrice Strauss, Mayor Friedline, Jack Israel, Eva Lavis, Ben Landau, Genia Lauterbach, Joseph Leva, Sylvia Monsbach, Joshua Rubin, Sidonia Zwelling, Aaron Allen, Michael Bronstein, Dr. Otto Kalina, Dr. Morris Resnick, Israel Albert Rosen, Bertha Shapiro, Ann Schiffman, Marilyn Smith, Vera Dubin, Pearl Farsh, Esther Massler, Leon Nover, Bertha Zolden, Ruby Davis, George Vermillion, Irving Friedman, Martin Kaufman, Florence Levine, Victor Mattensbaum, Arnold Rosette, Isaac Singer, Sarah Steinberg, Irvin Wallen, Beverly Wise, Anna Becker, Elizabeth Greenbaum, Daryl Jacoby Saunders, Ruth Cordish, Sadie Selza, Harry Spiegel, Bessie Aaron, Saul Bernstein, Elaine Hausman, Lori Lapata, Annette Massler, Mary Silver, Ruben E. Spiegel, Bernard Arieff, Andrew Benedict, Louis Brief, Doris Goodman, Jeanette Harris, Celia Lannon, Jean Lee, Ben Lerner, Louis Sadakin, Rose Tepler, and Brad Lee Wizen. If there's any names that I've neglected to mention, I do apologize. Invite you to put them, to email them to us just to make sure that we get them, or you can also put them on our Facebook in the comment section. We now turn to page 58, and I invite anyone currently reciting the Mourner's Kaddish, anyone observing the yahrzeit, to rise and join with me for these words of sanctification. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach Yeruteh v'amlich malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon u'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kari v'yimru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Olamei Maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei Dekudesha B'richu. Le'ila min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechmata za'amiran v'alma v'yimru. Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. Osei Shalom b'mramav. Huya aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. All righty, Cantor Aronoff, it's been a pleasure to be able to officiate at services with you. Just a few acknowledgements before we conclude. And are we going to be concluding with Yigdal or Adon Olam?
Yigdal.
Page 62 then. So before we conclude on page 62, just a few acknowledgements. First, want to wish everyone Shabbat Shalom. Again, want to thank Cantor Aronoff for leading us so beautifully in services. Want to thank Mel Aronoff there for like the little backup there. It was subtle, Mel. It was subtle, but we could hear it and we really appreciated it. And let's see, services tomorrow, 9:30. Invite everyone to join us then. Anything else, Cantor Aronoff?
Well, yes. You can keep shopping after Shabbos through Monday, I believe, at our Women of Adat Hanukkah online Hanukkah boutique. I believe it goes through the actual end of the month, which is Monday. So really, from the comfort of your own home, let your fingers do the walking and participate in the Hanukkah boutique.
Yeah, please join us in supporting it. It helps our sisterhood, helps these different vendors. It's a great thing to be able to do.
I think that's all I've got.
Okay, well then, page 62, let us conclude with Yigdal.
Okay. Yigdal Elohim chai ve'yishtabach nimtza b'yeinei tel metziuto echad yedin yachid keyichudo ne'lam v'gam ein sof le'achduto ein lo demut haguf ve'yeino guf lo na'aroch elav kedushato קדמון לכל דבר אשר נברא, ראשון בין ראשית לראשיתו, הינו אדון עולם וכל נוצר, יורה גדולתו ומלכותו, שפע נבואתו נתנו, אל אנשי סגולתו ותפארתו, לא קם בישראל כמו שעוד נביא ומביט את תמונתו תורת אמת נתן לימואל על יד נביאו למען ביתו לא יחל יפעל ולא ימיר דתו לעולמים לזולתו צופה ויודע סתרנו מביט לסוף דבר בקדמתו גומל איש חסד מפעלו, נותן לרשע רע כרשעתו, ישלח לקץ ימים משיחנו, לפדות נחכה קץ ישועתו, מתים יחייל ברוב חסדו, ברוך הדיין שתהילתו, מתים יחייל ברוב חסדו, ברוך הדיין שתהילתו.
Shabbat Shalom, can't hear enough. Shabbat Shalom, everyone out there. Have a good one. Take care of yourselves. Be well and be safe and be healthy.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom.